That's not a podcast.
This is a podcast.
You want me to introduce?
Yes.
Okay. Hello and welcome to the Aussie and Canuck podcast. I'm Alex, the Canadian.
And I'm the magnificent Magpie, the Australian.
Go figure. As we always do, we're going to be discussing a Canadian thing or an Australian thing. This time it's a Canadian thing, and specifically a TV show called Corner Gas. And before we get into that, though, we like to kind of see what's going on in each of our countries. And Magpie, do you want to go first with what's going on in Australia?
Yes, and I should just mention that we're recording this straight after our last Aussie Canuck podcast, so this news might be a bit out of date by the time we get around to releasing this. But yeah, so in Australia right now, it's only like recently in the last 20 minutes this has been reported. So, well,
breaking news.
It was breaking
news months after the fact when you're listening to this.
The Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, has confirmed a second airport in Sydney to trigger tens of millions of dollars in infrastructure and investment for Sydney's West. But here's the thing about this. I recently was going past the Sydney airport. It looks packed, and I don't really think we need that much more air traffic travelling over Sydney, to be honest with you. I think the solution for this problem is to build a bullet train between Sydney and Melbourne, because I think that's where a majority of the air traffic is going to be Australia quite significantly. There is an actual party that the whole crux behind them is to get this built and then get out of office. So I really don't think this is as necessary as they're making it out to be. I think it would be cheaper and it would be much better if we just went out and built that bullet train between the two cities, and that way you probably wouldn't have as much air traffic, and plus it would connect Canberra as well, and eventually the plan is to connect all Brisbane as well along the east coast. And I think it would be much more efficient, and you would only lose like an extra, it'd be quicker between the two things. And plus, really, I don't particularly like Tony Abbott in power anyway. I think the guy's an idiot. But anyway, that's...
Well, is a lot of the air traffic in Australia just kind of from city to city, like domestically?
I gather, yeah, I think it is, to be honest with you. I think, well, when you think about it, what's a lot of air traffic in the States? It'd probably be, I reckon there would be a lot of air traffic from like New York to California, and all over the States, really.
Yeah.
Like, when you think about it, that's probably where a lot of the air traffic is going. So I'd assume it's the same over here. But it's just like when I went to the Big Brother auditions, there was every like 10 minutes or so you would hear this airplane coming overhead.
That's a very good impression of a plane, actually.
Yeah, it's just like I don't think it's a good idea. I think, yeah, great, it's going to create jobs and everything. That's always a good thing. But I think they're not thinking enough of train travel. I think I think the bullet train Party or whatever they're calling themselves had the right idea. Like I heard their pitch. It sounded great, and trust me, if I could travel from Sydney to Melbourne as fast as they say it would be, I would go. It would not like I could spend the day in Melbourne
Hmm.
if I really wanted to, and then come back home. And like, granted, it would take it'd be an all-day trip, but and I could spend a couple of hours and only a couple of hours in Melbourne, but it would still be pretty good, you know.
Hmm.
Or and I could get to Canberra a lot faster. But yeah, it'd be great. But yeah, that's my story. I think the cost of it is astronomical as well, and it's just ridiculous. They say that they do have a figure here, $2.5 billion. Now let's see, what else could we spend $2.5 billion on? Oh yeah, let's build some new schools. Let's get some more teachers going. Let's actually let's get some of those hospitals back up and running that seem to be falling apart. Oh, it's ridiculous.
Mm.
For those of you who don't know, I was recently in at the beginning of the year. I had to have my appendix taken out. It was friggin' ridiculous how crappy the hospital was in shape when I went there. Like it wasn't it wasn't terrible, but it was like borderline. Like I couldn't have any decent sheets to cover me up or anything. It was ridiculous. So let's take that $2.5 million and reinvest it in our hospitals. Let's actually take care of our sick and injured.
Yeah, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. So yeah, let's not get Magpie talking about politics too much more. Like, go ahead.
Oh, it's
Alex.
fun. It's fun. Oh, okay. My bit of news is apparently it's come to light that there's this Christian school in Alberta that is getting provincial funding, so money from tax dollars. And the school has a very, very strict anti-homosexual agenda, and says that teachers and students are required to abstain from homosexual relations, which is just I find ethically repugnant, but it's against the law basically. It's trying to look up how long ago it was. Yeah, I think 15 or so years ago. There's like a workplace discrimination thing in the Canadian Supreme Court that said, you can't discriminate over sexual orientation, and it's a pretty big issue when tax dollars are going to fund something that violates, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So yeah, that's kind of one of the big headlines today, and I'm suitably peeved because that should not be happening.
Yeah,
I'm not pleased with religious schools being funded by public money, period, and that is actually a big problem here in Ontario, because there's an entire separate school board that's the Catholic school board that gets some public funding, and that goes back to a really long time ago, and that's why the only reason it's still around. But I don't agree with that at all. I think that's totally unethical.
Yeah, it's stupid.
If people, because there are other religious schools, but they're funded by the parents, and if they want to do that, I mean personally I am opposed to that, but legally they're perfectly allowed to do so. But they shouldn't be doing that with money that I pay to the government, because that kind of violates freedom of religion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we like, to be honest, can we just like get over this whole bash the gays thing? Cause,
yeah, really.
And, yeah. All right. Can we get on to what we're actually talking about?
Yeah.
Because that's a much better.
Much more upbeat, I guess, than a lot of our news stories tend to be. Like I said before, the show we're covering is Corner Gas. It was a sitcom that aired on CTV over here in Canada, and ran for 6 seasons. I think 4 of which are good, and we'll get into that. But I guess to outline what the show is, it's set in rural Saskatchewan in a small town of roughly 500 people, which we find out in one episode where they do census. That's a good one, actually.
Yeah.
The town's called Dog River, and it centers around a gas station that is attached to a kind of diner restaurant. It's called the Ruby, and Brent Leroy runs the gas station, which he inherited from his father, Oscar, who's kind of the town crank in a way, cranky old man. And his mother's Emma, who's also in the show. He has an employee, Wanda, who he's friends with, and his best friend, Hank, who's perpetually unemployed and kind of slow on the uptake, often hangs out there. Lacey Burrows, who is originally from Toronto, in the first episode of the show, has come to Dog River, Saskatchewan, to run the restaurant after her aunt left it to her when her aunt passed away. Also in the town you have Davis and Karen, who are the two police officers, and they're the only police officers on the local police force. And they don't really do anything, which is, where a lot of the humor comes from. I guess they take a lot of naps, but I think that's it. There are a lot of recurring characters as well. There's Fitzy the mayor, who is obsessed with keeping his job despite the fact that nobody else wants it. There's Wes Humboldt, who runs the liquor/insurance store, which is a funny little thing. And, there's a town bar and stuff as well. But it centers on this quirky little town in rural Saskatchewan, and kind of like Seinfeld, it's not really about anything. But Magpie, what do you think of Corner Gas?
I think it's a really funny show. It's just that I wish it was a little bit more arcy, not like hugely slow like a la DS9 was, but like we had some interconnecting stories a little bit more than what we do. Like that's my only like real critical thing of the show. Like I get it, it's an episodic format, but there's just so many opportunities here, and I'll get into that, like, because I gather we're going to take this season by season and talk about each one a little bit.
That might not be a bad way to go about it, or about it, as we say in Canada.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it is very episodic, and certain bits of continuity pop up now and then, but it isn't a show that focuses too heavily on that. It is just kind of you can sit down and watch any episode of the show and enjoy it. And this premiered in 2003, 2004, around that time.
04. I got the thing up in front of me, 04.
So, television hadn't quite become the super serialized thing that it is definitely now. But yeah, I think it could have benefited from a little bit more, especially too because it is in the small town, and I live in a small town, and people in small town gossip. Things come up again and again. Yes, they do. I mean, maybe the weird comparison I can draw is to something else that we've reviewed, and that's Star Trek Deep Space Nine, over on my channel, and that's it centers around a single place, and you have people from elsewhere coming in a lot of the time. But I don't know. Yeah, it could have benefited, I think, from a lot more of self-referential humor.
Yeah, and I think I pitched you an idea early on, because there's this episode in the first season, Hook, Line, and Sinker, which incidentally is my favorite episode, is where Hank goes on a trip with
Karen, the police officer.
And Karen ends up making out with him, or
I think they did sleep together. That's the whole joke of that show. Is Hank is kind of dumb and kind of gross too, and but when he goes fishing, he's like a completely different person. He speaks like a poet, and whenever Karen looks at him when they're out fishing, like the sexy saxophone music plays.
Yeah, and I thought like after this, they like maybe early on in the second season, something else would happen, and the two of them would end up dating for a while, you know. And I think they would have drummed up some interesting things within the show itself, like more comedic possibilities. And I looked over after that episode. I looked at each like at certain episodes and thought, well, they wouldn't need to change too much in this one if those two are in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I would maybe throw a counterpoint out there, and this is just because I don't disagree with you necessarily, but I think there already is a relationship in the show between Oscar and Emma that would be kind of, I imagine, that same dynamic that the Hank and Karen relationship would have, because she's more normal and he's a little bit more crazy and odd,
Mm.
and she's embarrassed because I mean that is the
Mm.
whole plot of, or I guess that part of the episode is they come back from the fishing trip and they ask her about it, and she keeps saying, "I didn't sleep with Hank," and then so she's basically spreading the rumor herself about the two of them, and then Hank is the one who's like, "Yeah, quit bragging. I don't want people to think I'm easy."
Yeah, but the thing about to counter your counterpoint is that those two characters are entirely different than Oscar and Emma, so there would be kind of similar dynamic, but I think Emma in her own way is not as normal as as
Yeah, that's true.
and well again, two of my favorite characters in the show are Hank and Karen, so kind of I don't want to see something happen between them, but yeah.
While we're on the topic of relationships in the show, the whole first season, and we can really talk about this because I know you feel the same way I do about how they pay this off in the second season, or I guess don't pay it off in the second season. The whole first season, basically, they build to Brent and Lacey, who own, both of the businesses that the whole show centers around. Kind of grow closer and closer, and it feels like they're going to put those two characters together, and then they almost kiss in the season one finale, and then in season two they just take it in a completely different direction and don't put those two characters together. And I think the reason they didn't do that was just they were afraid of doing what a lot of shows do, and that is once you do hook two characters up, you lose a lot of the tension, and it just becomes all about boring relationship humor that we've heard before. And so I can see why they maybe didn't want to take in that direction, but it feels like just at the beginning of the second season, just complete left turn.
Yeah. I brought that up to you as well, and as you said, we both agree on it. And I actually really like relationship humor. I don't think it's necessarily boring unless you make it that way. But I propose to you another theory. The main guy in this,
Brent.
Brent, the actor's name, Brent Butt.
Mm-hmm.
His wife is actually in this show, Nancy Robertson. So maybe she put the kibosh on the idea.
Well, no, because they didn't get married until season 3, and they met each other through the show. So at that point, they weren't a couple yet.
Okay, well, okay, I didn't know that, but I just found that out just now. But
yeah, it did lead to a romance in real life. The show.
Yeah. So, but all right, you put the thing on that. Why not? The other thing I thought they might do later on is probably do the Brent Wanda thing. They could have done that, but there wasn't.
They could have. There's so much possibility, I think, with the Hank being seductive when he fishes thing, because Davis doesn't want to go on the fishing trip with him, and then there's a lot of subtle references throughout the show that Davis might be gay. And I won't go through all the examples, but there are a lot of them. And
Okay.
then you rewatch that episode with that in mind, and Davis is he lied and said that he went to go and see an aromatherapist, and that's why he didn't go fishing, because he knows what Hank is like when he goes fishing, so he didn't want to go and go through that again. So, I kind of wonder, did Hank sleep with everybody in town?
Yeah.
But I guess where I really was going with that actually was Wanda has a child in this, and we don't know who the father is. And I always thought it would be interesting if later on they revealed that it was Hank, because Wanda hates Hank, like with a passion. Yeah. She hates Hank. So I wondered, did they go on a fishing trip one time?
Yeah, yeah. It's never revealed. It's a kind of a mystery. But yeah, and that's something they should have probably paid off. In some way or another. But yeah, that's something really interesting. There's another episode, Cell Phone, where I swear to God, the writer of this episode must have been outside my best mate's caravan, because a lot of the jokes in this we came up with.
Oh, really?
At a time when we just gotten back, Ben. Maybe we walked through an area where people were smoking some suspicious stuff, and we got, and maybe we were slightly affected by it, and and maybe we came up with a lot of the jokes that are referred to in this episode, because the whole thing is that they want to get tinier and tinier cell phones, and the joke is that it's kind of the reverse of the
penis
getting
joke,
a bigger
basically.
yeah, penis joke, yeah. So yeah, but and I swear to God, the writer Paul Mather must have been outside. Must have been like, oh, this is gold.
Well, that's interesting too in that episode, because that plot doesn't really work now that we have smartphones.
Yeah, because they're all roughly about the same size. They're still about.
Well, yeah, because you need a screen of a certain size.
Yeah.
Because there's a joke in that episode where Brent holds the phone up to Davis's face and look, the screen's in color. I don't know if you can see that on account of how small it is.
Yeah, that's funny.
It might be worth talking about humor style in this too, and that I feel like the show does embody Canadian humor very well, and that it's incredibly sarcastic.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think if you were to do the Australian version of this, it wouldn't be as sarcastic. It would be more. It would definitely be different. I don't know how you would do it in Australia in a
Where would you even set it? Because what would be the equivalent of Saskatchewan?
Well, you would probably be rural. You could set it in a rural New South Wales. You could. The obvious one would be set it out somewhere out in the Northern Territory, or even somewhere along the somewhere between Adelaide and Perth, along that route if you really wanted to, but filming out there would be a bitch. So I'd say rural rural Victoria, rural New South Wales, it's somewhere down from where I am. You could set it in Huskisson or Century Point, somewhere around there, or even further. There's various places you could set it, and it would be different. You wouldn't have that whole flat thing with it. You could tell a different joke to start off with.
Yeah, because that's maybe a good thing to bring up is the very first scene in the very first episode is just kind of a joke about Saskatchewan, and the guy comes into the gas station to get gas, and he says like, "Oh, it's very flat, and not much to see." And then Brent's like, "There's lots to see. There's nothing to block your view."
Yeah, yeah, that's really funny. That's a good one. Um, yeah.
Do we kind of want to go through and like sort of rank how we feel the seasons are? Because that was something we talked about in the beginning, and I think you and I both agree that this show probably should have wrapped up with season 4.
Not. I just really wish there was a couple of stories that you could kind of fit into from the later seasons into like season 4, because season 4, from memory, that was the hardest one I had to get through.
Oh,
like,
really?
There's not a lot going on, and it feels kind of repetitive by that point.
Yeah, there is a joke in one episode that kind of lampshades how the show became as time went on, where maybe it was in a later season than that, but Wanda, it's one where Wanda fills in at the bar as the bartender, and Oscar goes to Emma, "Hey, do you notice that like every couple of weeks either me or Wanda or Hank has some crazy new job?" And then Emma goes, "No, and I'm sure no one else has either." If you, as the showrunners, are realizing that this is a problem, then why do you keep doing it?
Yeah, but I think later on it should have become more archy. Like, maybe not the first or second season, but definitely by the third, because by then...
Yeah, you have a lot of established continuity to work with.
Yeah. And, like I said, you could have done something by then with the... And a lot of, like... I think you could have done some younger relationship humor with... Oh, I hate to bring it up again, but Hank and Karen. I think you could have done something there. Like, one episode they try living together and it's disastrous. I think would have been a great idea for one.
Yeah, because Hank is so gross. I mean, like, there's a reference one time, "I've seen you eat gum off your shoe."
Yeah. But yeah, I did like the second season. I did like the third from memory. Sorry, but I think by the time I got to the end of the 5th season, it was starting to pick up again in some ways. So I remember, like, I think I watched like the 6th season all in one afternoon or something, but I don't think the finale worked as well as the end of season 4. I think season 4's ending had someone had someone left, it would have felt more like a finale. And I think I had the idea, like, it says that Karen and Davis both get married, but to different people.
What if, not to each other.
Yeah. What if the thing was Karen married Hank and Davis married someone else? Like, probably not Wanda. Never saw that happening, but
no. Fitzy, I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Something.
Yeah. So we should maybe kind of elaborate on that. So season 4 ends with an episode called "Go For It," and basically, long story short, the episode is Hank comes up with an idea that would improve the town, which actually was the whole plot of a first season episode. And maybe if I had to pick a favorite one, it would be "World's Biggest Thing," but we'll talk about that.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, "Hank, before you speak, please think about it." And then one of the things the show does really well is it does a lot of good cutaway gags. So like there'll be like a whip pan, and you'll see it pay off to a joke, and then you whip pan back. But Basically, there's a whip pan, and then it just goes to Hank still sitting there thinking, and then the whole episode plays out, and basically Corner Gas gets bought by a bigger company. Wanda goes on TV. The Prime Minister visits. All kinds of crazy stuff happens. Emma becomes the mayor. A lot of really weird, crazy stuff happens. Lacey decides to move back to Toronto, and it feels like the whole thing's coming to an end, and then it's revealed at the end. No, all of that was just Hank thinking, like they told him to do. And the final scene in that episode is basically them in the Ruby about to eat like banana cake or something, and it's all of the characters that we saw, and they're all in the same room, and it just seemed perfect, and the perfect way to end it, like, because the theme song of the show is, there's not a lot going on, and I thought it was just the perfect ending for the show, and then there were 2 more seasons.
Yeah, I think that episode, had it not all been a dream, though, we would have got, like...
Yeah, even if it had worked out that way, it would have been a good finale.
Yeah, it just seems like things aren't changing, and it's not feeling like a dramatic end. And I was reading somewhere that they were planning on making a movie. Now, if that was going to...
That's been kicked around, but nothing's ever come of it. I mean, Brent Butt is making a movie. He's got a movie coming out, but it's completely unrelated.
Well, I think they should make a movie that's like definitely the finale to the show, because it's like, why not?
Yeah, because we should talk about the actual finale too, and it's basically because the whole show, like, Brent Butt is the comedian behind the show. And it's basically based on what his life would have been like had he stayed in rural Saskatchewan instead of become this big comedian. And the episode is basically Brent has been going into the city, like, on weekends and stuff, or Friday nights, I think, to do comedy bits. And then it's just kind of like, it's a whole mystery of what's he doing, and then, they all support him because, some comedy tour thing wants to pick him up and take him on tour and away from Dog River, and he decides to not leave. So it's just, I felt it was kind of lackluster.
Yeah, and if he had decided to leave, it would have been much more impactful.
Yeah, and surprising. And it could have worked as a finale because, like I said, that's basically the trajectory of Brent Butt's actual life.
Yeah.
So,
which would have been cool,
Yeah, but they didn't go that way.
Oh, but there's a lot of good here. Why don't you throw out some episodes from the first season and I'll see if I should be able to remember them and tell you what I think.
Yeah. The first one is actually really, really stand out. It's a tremendous episode, and they did not film the first season in order, like, at all.
No, I can tell that much.
Yeah, Ruby Reborn was like maybe 4th or 5th filmed, I think. And there's certain things that because they wanted to, like, really nail everything down and have a really strong start to the show. And there's certain things that you can tell, like, partway through they decided that Davis should wear a T-shirt underneath his uniform, and so earlier episodes the ones that they filmed earlier, you can tell that they were filmed earlier because he doesn't have that.
Okay.
But Ruby Reborn is where it all gets set up, and there's, like, great jokes about that really, they do a good job of introducing all the characters, and, like, Oscar and his craziness, and he's never rented a movie before, and he's totally against even the idea of it, and that just plays out hilariously. I think, though, I gotta say my favorite one, though Taxman, the second episode, is quite good because that brings in Oscar's catchphrase, which is jackass. He calls everyone a jackass, but and his other thing, his other catchphrase is "my taxes pay your salary," which he always says to the police to try and get them to do what he wants. With his silly complaints. But I gotta say my favorite one is World's Biggest Thing, because Hank comes up with an idea to build a tourist magnet for the town, and the Mayor Fitzy's grandmother thinks that she should be a hoe. So they want to build the world's biggest hoe, and there are all kinds of great jokes about, like, oh, we could, put some sheet metal, onto an old telephone pole. And they're like, no, it'll be too heavy, it'll crack. And they're like, crack hoe? Like, where are they going to build this hoe? Probably on a street corner.
Yeah.
It's just, I know, that one always stood out to me, even when I watched it for the first time, as being really, really funny.
Yeah, yeah, and we already talked about my favorite episode of the whole series, which is Hook, Line, and Sinker.
Mm. There's another side to that one that I find really funny, and that's that Brent and Lacey rent a sign for Out by the Road to advertise, and it's basically them just making fun of each other, and coming up with increasingly mean insults, which is really funny.
Yeah, and it drums up business for both places really well.
Yeah, because people keep coming by to see what they're going to say next, and then the end scene ties both of the storylines together perfectly, and that's their business is booming, and they're like, yeah, it really helps to have the right slogan, and we do a whip pan out to the sign that says Karen slept with Hank.
Yeah, and I just love. I really like Karen, and she. I think she grows like throughout. I think her character gets better and better as the show goes on. I really do.
Yeah, because she's one of the younger people in the cast too. Because she's like a rookie cop in the first season.
I don't think they do enough with Davis, though. I really don't. I think he never really gets out of he's got like this certain character, and it's just pretty much the same as it is at the beginning as it is at the end.
Yeah, and I mean that's like traditional comedy stuff, but yeah, I don't know. We don't see as much police stuff in this as maybe I would have liked to have seen. There was a good part in, I think, season 3, the trucker one, where he hates truckers, and it's because he saw the movie Convoy. He pulls one over and says, "Do you know how fast you're going?" And the trucker says, like, "The speed limit." He's like, "Yeah, for ideal weather conditions. The humidity's very high today."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like other standout stuff, because like there's a small town rivalry thing that goes on between Dog River and another town called Woolerton, where where every time anybody ever says Woolerton, they spit.
Yeah. That's a good one.
It's just little small touches like that really build kind of the weird universe in a way. Season 1, I think, is still my favorite, maybe because of that, because it's all setting up stuff. And I feel like season 1 was maybe a little bit more experimental as well, as far as what they tried. Because like every episode in that season feels very different, but like in a good way.
Yeah.
But yeah, what is your favorite season of the show?
Oh, probably all round. I think, from memory, season 5 actually. I think.
Interesting. There's some good ones in season 5. There's also a couple that I really actually don't like. Like, I don't like Coming Distractions.
Coming Distractions. Which one is that one?
That's the one with like the Raptor Man movie.
A little bit more information.
Basically Brent and Hank and Davis all lie to each other about like who's seen the movie with whom.
Oh yeah, that.
But then you have great ones like in that season, like Game Set Mouse and what's it called, Buzz Driver, where Oscar becomes the bus driver. and all of the
Yeah.
kids are actually really well behaved. But I would say season 1's my favorite, and honestly, I think just for me anyway, every season gets progressively worse, and I don't think it gets really bad until like the last 2 seasons, but
I think there's some good episodes in there though in those last 2 seasons that I would have preferred had been in season 4, because it seems like some writers are stepping it up, others are like backing down.
mm-hmm.
It's really weird. Yeah. So
what ones in season 4 don't you like?
I gotta remember, because it just seemed like there was like this repetitive fashion to it. Just trying to. I'm looking at these now. Uh, there's the one where is it in season 4, the one where Oscar and Davis get stuck on the roof? And I just felt like that was like the same gag, just repeating over and over and over again.
I think that's season 4, maybe season 3. Just trying to think off the top of my head, because that's not the primary storyline in that episode, whatever one it is.
Yeah, I think kid stuff is a bit boring. I just remember struggling through this season. Honestly, I think midway through I was just like, oh man, I've got to finish watching this. Because I want to do it all. But yeah,
I like Sense of Sensibility a lot, and that's in season 4.
I think that was like, yeah, that was one of the ones I was like, oh, this is actually quite good.
Lacey Burrows I liked too, where Lacey and Karen don't realize how good of friends they are, and that they can borrow stuff from each other, and then they're both kind of uncomfortable with that, and then they keep trying to one up each other and like borrowing, bigger and bigger things, and like Lacey borrowed the police car and Karen borrows Lacey's house.
That was another one that was like, that part of it was pretty good. I think the Hank part of it was not as good. It's like,
yeah, that's maybe the thing about the later seasons is there are very good storylines in certain episodes, but they're often in episodes where other storylines aren't as good.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't say like this particular episode sucks or this particular episode is really good, because it's like I like half of the episode.
Yeah. I think it was maybe I was just like burnt out on it, to be honest, because there was.
You watched this whole series in like what, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could see why that would be the case.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do that quite often. Like, I'm probably going to be doing something else, just on my own because I've been wanting to do it eventually, and that's another show that I like. That isn't Canadian or Australian, but I feel like I should do it just to tell people how good it was. But yeah, there was a lot of, like, it may have been burnout. It just may have been like, but there was some, like, it did feel a little bit repetitive. Like, here's one, Jailhouse, where
oh yeah,
Karen locks Davis in the jail cell, and a lot of the gags just didn't feel like that funny to me. Like, apart from, like, I do like Hank's part in that episode, but where he goes to the jail cell and
annoys him.
Yeah, and that's like a bit funny, but like, I really do feel like because by then I was like, come on, guys, we've got like 3 seasons of continuity. Let's build on these relationships a bit.
Yeah, by that point they'd established who these characters were. Let's see where we can take them.
Yeah, and I think at least flirt with the idea of hooking two of them up. That because I really would have liked to have seen that. I don't care which two really. Like I would have felt like seeing two people in a relationship is really funny. It can be really funny to me, and it's it's why I like a lot of dramas and stuff. But it's one of the reasons I like Friends a lot too, is because you get to see when two people are in a relationship be that can be really funny and can be kind of dramatic in some forms, but yeah, and I don't think they capitalized on it well enough.
Yeah, and I don't know, the Brent and the Lacey one might have been odd, because like Lacey's whole shtick for the first half of the show is, she's the outsider, she's learning things, and she's kind of the window through which we get to view this quirky small town, and then that kind of goes away partway through. And her and Brent always were like the most normal ones. And I feel like
I think that one could have been really dull.
Yeah, exactly. Because like there wouldn't have been much conflict there, because they do have pretty good chemistry. And I don't know what comedy would have come from that. But I feel like those two characters too, especially in the last two seasons, and the last one especially, they were just like completely different characters. Like they were reaching so far for jokes at the end that like Brent and Lacey became just kind of mean people and kind of selfish and unlikable. And they were the normal ones that everybody else, their quirkiness kind of was able to play off of.
Yeah. As the series went on, I liked Brent less and less and less.
Mm-hmm.
Lacey just got kind of annoying, really. It's why I gravitated to Karen and Hank so much. Oscar was always funny.
Yeah, you can say Jackass 100 million times and it's still funny.
Yeah. And I think he was reaching that record by the end.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some stuff. What about season 2? Because we haven't really talked about that one a lot.
Season 2 is really, really good.
Yeah.
It is my second favorite, I guess. And like, I don't think there's a huge dip in quality between season 1 and 2. Despite the fact that I prefer season 1.
I just think what would have been interesting had Brent and Lacey just gone on a date and it had been like
they could have done it. They could have done that way had it been dull. Like they go on a date and they realize it's
there's no real spark there.
Yeah,
and then just went and instead of just like putting a stomp on, like not doing anything about it.
Well, yeah, because basically why they don't get together is neither of them want to be in a relationship with each other, and that kind of comes out of nowhere given everything that happened in the first season.
Yeah, it seemed like I was like, oh, they're building up towards this. No, they're not.
Yeah, so actually your idea makes way more sense. That they would pay it off and then just find it doesn't work.
Yeah, I just really don't know what the story was behind that.
Yeah, but I don't know why they went in that direction.
Yeah, it's like
I think season 2 maybe has a lot of the best Oscar stuff.
Yeah.
There's a great joke in Smell of Freedom, which is Davis basically gets his sense of smell back. He didn't have a sense of smell since he was a kid because he got hit in the head, and he falls off a ladder helping Oscar try and get a cat out of a tree, and then Davis goes like, I feel strange. I smell burning toast. And they cut away to Emma, and she's at the window with a toaster that's basically on fire, waving it. And then Oscar's like, oh, tough guy, now you're going to have a seizure. And then, wait, I smell it too. And, Davis is like, you know what this means? And Oscar's like, I caught your epilepsy? And it's just like, because, epilepsy's not contagious. But...
What do you think of What a phobia. What a phobia.
That's a really good one, too.
Lacey has a fear of balloons.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny.
Well, and the whole relationship thing with Davis, and that Davis also has globophobia and wants to take her to a globophobic support group, but Lacey thinks that he's asking her out on a date.
Which is really funny.
Also, Davis has a great theory that Battlestar Galactica actually happened.
Yeah, which I'm sure you love.
Yeah, that
Mm.
that cracked me up.
But also in this episode, Oscar is trying to prove to Emma that he can cook, and it's actually Karen that's helping him out with it, which is really funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a theory about that one, which would have made the whole thing really work. And if they had pursued the relationship between Karen and Hank is that it would have been Hank that said, "Oh well, Karen's a great cook. I should know. She cooks all my meals for me or something." And then Oscar sort of goes over and asks her to help out or something there.
Yeah.
It's little moments like that would have made it like is all you really needed for that, because I really want to see that happen.
The one after that too, I find quite funny. Lost and Found, where Oscar finds a pair of pants by the side of the road, and then puts them on and like wears them around. It's just the craziest thing ever.
Yeah. It picks up other stuff eventually as well.
Yeah. Though I love the Indian arrowhead joke in that one. And like Emma's like, it's not an arrowhead, it's not even sharp. And then they cut away to back in time with two Cree guys from back in the day, and like the one guy's insulting him, the other one because he makes such crappy arrows. Oscar was actually right. But
yeah,
I know there's a lot of humor in this show that I just love. We could probably go on and on forever about it, but.
Oh, we're pretty deep into this now. Yeah, I think it was good. I just wish it'd been a bit more archy, like a little bit more, like little bit more archy. That's the only thing. My only complaint about it is that. But yeah, I can't remember. Have you got the list in front of you of what we're doing next?
I can here in a second. Okay. Next is Howzos.
Howzos.
Which I'm really excited about.
Yeah. We're going to cover both seasons of that, and we'll probably do a commentary for the movie as well.
That works.
Yeah, so, yeah, and I'm sure we'll discuss the movie during that as well, and yeah, that's going to be really good. So, yeah, that'll be really interesting. I can't wait to do that one, because that's something I've been looking forward to, and already started preparing for. So, yeah.
Good. Because I definitely have some things to say about it, and I really, really enjoy that show. But given that it's sort of loosely inspired by Trailer Park Boys, I think we can, for part of it anyway, go in kind of an interesting direction and compare the two shows.
Okay.
But I guess that does it for us. You can let us know in the comments whether you're Canadian or Australian what you think of Corner Gas, and did you think that the show dropped off in terms of quality later on? Who were your favorite characters, and do you think that Hank and Karen should have gotten together? You can let us know down in the comments. I'm Alex, the Canadian.
And I'm the Magnificent Magpie. And one last thing, if you've got a suggestion for something that is Australian or Canadian, please put the suggestion in the comments below.
Absolutely.
And we will I'm starting work on a suggestion box, so put it in there, and we will put it on the list, because Alex has got the list apparently, not me. But anyway, yeah. So goodbye, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this.